Namaste. Taptanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhasute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Hari. So once again, thank you, dear devotees. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So in the Panchatattva, the majority are playing the role of grihasta, because Shri Krishna Chaitanya is, he's playing the role of a sannyasi. But Prabhu Nityananda, he is in grihasta ashram. Shri Advaita is in grihasta ashram. Shri Gadadhar Pandit is kshetra sannyasi, so he is in the sannyas ashram. And Srivas Thakur is in grihasta ashram. So Dhameshwar Prabhu, 3 out of 5 are in the grihasta ashram. And we did not calculate Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, because if we calculate Adi, then the grihasta ashram will be in a majority. So in the Panchatattva itself, majority are in the grihastha ashram. They are playing the role of a householder. Of course, all of them are transcendental and are beyond varna and ashrama. But for the sake of lila pastime, they are playing their respective roles. And we discussed the glorious grihastha ashram in the previous session. And today we are continuing. And this is our presentation series on Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamritam. Now, in the previous talk, I was a little more confident because I am myself situated in the grihastha ashram and I was speaking about grihastha ashram. So I felt like I was in familiar waters. But today's presentation is mainly focused on the other ashrams. So I am slightly, I'm thinking whether I'm truly eligible to speak about the other ashrams. So one good strategy is that instead of giving any personal opinions, I will try to state as many facts and as many Shastra Pramanas as possible. Because Shastra has the adhikar, the right to instruct all varnas and all ashramas. So therefore, today's presentation, I try to speak as much as possible from Shastra and as many facts as possible. There are brahmacharis who are currently in the audience. So if they feel that something was not spoken correctly, then they can point it out at the end. Before we begin, I'd like to offer a brand new verse of offering obeisances to Srila Rupa Goswami. So this verse is in front of us, and this verse is as follows. Nirmathya bhakti pathodim udhritam bahuyatnatah Upadeshamritam yena tam Śrī-Upam. So this is a new verse of glorification composed recently. We offer worship to Sri Rupa Goswami, Śrī-Upam Upasman, by whom the ocean of bhakti was churned, Nirmathya Bhakti Pathodin, and the nectar of instruction, that is Upadeshamritam, was extracted with great effort. So Srila Rupa Goswami churned Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and in the churning of the ocean, as we know, there was Amrita or nectar that came out. So when Sri Rupa Goswami churned the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, a very condensed nectar came out in the form of Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. So we all offer worship to Shri Rupa Goswami. Now, in the previous presentation, we were discussing Brahmacharya in the grihasta ashram. And we specified from Shastra the various shades of Brahmacharya that are prescribed in the Shastra, or that are allowed in the Shastra for grihastas. Now, somebody may still want some further confirmation. Is it true that Brahmacharya in grihasta ashram, is not only of the highest standard, but also other standards? So yes, it is true. And I would like to point out a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 7th Canto. And this is from the 11th chapter, verse number 8, where Yudhishthir Maharaj asks Narad Muni about the various duties of various varnas and ashramas. Narad Muni starts describing, and he describes what is the duty in general of all people, especially for a householder, ahimsa brahmacharyam cha. Now, Dhameshwar Prabhu, I'll need your help in translating, because non-violence and brahmacharya. So we are highlighting brahmacharya. In the word for word, Srila Prabhupada translates brahmacharya. This is the word for word of that verse by Srila Prabhupada himself. So Prabhu, kindly read.
Brahmacharya, continence or abstaining from misuse of one's semen, not indulging in sex with women other than one's wife, and not having sex with one's own wife when sex is forbidden, like during the period of menstruation.
So this is Brahmacharya as defined by Srila Prabhupada in the word for word. So Dhameshwar Prabhu, is this like the Vimal standard, or does this seem to be like one of the other standards?
Yeah, it seems like black or red.
Yes. So this is how Srila Prabhupada translates it. You can note down the verse number. Everyone who is interested can note down the verse number, and they can see the word for word by Srila Prabhupada. Not only Srila Prabhupada, other commentators also say something very similar in the same lines. Shri Veer Raghavacharya is a commentator from the Shri Vaishnava Sampradaya. Commenting on this verse, he says, Brahmacharyam anuchita kaleshu stri sanga rahityam. So Brahmacharya means anuchita kaleshu, during unfavorable times, stri sanga rahityam, to avoid associating with one's spouse. So basically, this is how he defines Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is to avoid associating with one's spouse during unfavorable times. Not only Shri Veer Raghavacharya, there is another commentator, Shri Ganga Sahai, who has commented on each and every word of the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Shri Ganga Sahai, in his commentary, Anvitartha Prakashika, he says, Brahmacharyam parastri varjanam, nishiddha desha kaladau swastri varjanam cha. Brahmacharya is to completely avoid sex with anyone besides one's spouse, as well as to avoid sex with one's spouse at a forbidden place or at a forbidden time, etc. So forbidden place refers basically to very holy places, and forbidden times Srila Prabhupada has specified, like during the times of monthly impurities. So these are forbidden times, and forbidden places are places of great religious or spiritual importance. So this is what the previous commentators have defined Brahmacharya as. So that is what I have specified to each and every one of you. So what I have done is I've got the message of all the previous acharyas, and I have put all the options on the table, and I have shown this is what Brahmacharya is for grihastas. Now, there is a very strict wording for the grihastas, and every grihasta should pay heed to this strict wording. Just because the standards in the grihasta ashram are not as strict as the standards of the renunciates, doesn't mean that the grihasta has a free license to do anything and everything that they want. In the Visnu Purana, there is a set of verses quoted, and these verses are quoted as it is in the Hari Bhakti Vilas by Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami. So these are verses not only from the Vishnu Purana, but also they are found in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. They are warning the householder. What are they saying? Paradaranna gacchecha manasapi kadachana imu vachasti bandhopi nasti teshu vyavayinam prito narakamabhyeti hiyate trapi chayushah paradar gati pumsam ubhayatrapi bhitida iti matva swadareshu ritumatsu budho prajet yatokta doshahineshu sakameshwan ritavapi paradaranna gacchecha manasapi kadachana. One should not indulge in sex with someone else's spouse, even in one's dreams or in one's mind. So even in one's mind, one should not think lustfully of somebody else's spouse. Kimu vacha. What then to speak of? What then to say of speaking flirtatiously with somebody else's spouse? Asti bandhopi nasti deshu vyavainam. People who do so, people who flirt with the spouses of others. Vachasti bandhopi nasti. They are born as creeping insects in their next life. Such adulterers are punished in both this life and the next. Their days in this world are cut short, and when they die, they fall into hell. Iti matva. Knowing this, intelligent people should approach only their spouse during proper days, or even at other times when the spouse is affected by desire. So this is Hari Bhakti Vilas, the 11th Vilas, 11th chapter, verses 171 to 173. And these are taken from the Vishnu Purana. So I have specified both the references. So the grihastas should know very well that to have a lustful mindset outside of one's marriage, that is very detrimental to one's spiritual life. And all the Shastras have condemned it, and in very straightforward words. So the grihastas, because they are sadhakas, they should not live the life of karmis. Therefore, a very strict warning has been given for them. Now, coming back, we were discussing that there are two types of sadhakas, and both have to restrict their kama vega. So we saw restriction of kama vega for grihastas. Now, we also have to see restriction of kama vega for celibates. Celibates basically refers to three ashramas: the brahmachari, the vanaprastha, and the sannyas ashram. These are the three ashramas. Amongst these three, if you see in any society, the maximum number of individuals are there in the brahmachari ashram. Because from the brahmachari ashram, either they take to sannyas or they take to grihasta ashram. The maximum number of individuals are students who are studying in the brahmachari ashram. So we will take up brahmachari ashram. And what does brahmachari ashram, how can a brahmachari restrict upastha vegam? So I would like to ask if there is a brahmachari. Jai Dwarka Prabhu, you are my friend, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
So will you help me, Prabhu, for this particular presentation?
Yes,
Right?
surely, Prabhuji, as far as possible.
All right. So Jai Dwarka Prabhu, there is a very simple solution for avoiding upastha vegam in the brahmachari ashram. Kapil Muni says in the 3rd canto, Sangam na kuryat pramada sujatu yokasya param paramarurukshu matsevaya pratilabdhatma labho vadanti ya nirayadvaramasya. Kapil Muni says, one who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized himself by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman. For such a woman is declared in the scripture to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. So, Prabhu, very simple solution for the brahmachari ashram: completely avoiding any association with the opposite gender. How does that sound?
A little difficult in today's scenario, especially
Why?
of ISKCON scenario.
Why? Prabhu, Shastra is saying.
Yes, Prabhuji. Actually, Prabhuji, we live in a world where people have already been engaged openly, and after having too much of sanskara, we come to devotion service. And when devotees, those who are living amongst the society where both the population is there in temple, devotees as well as non-devotees, and if a devotee lives like that, like completely ignoring and just avoiding that, so it will be taken as a fanatic, and that will create a very negative atmosphere for preaching. So
Wow.
so
So following Kapil Muni is fanaticism, isn't it so? Jai Bhargava Prabhu.
in the eyes of the people who are ignorant with the scriptures.
Oh, wow. All right. So, Prabhu, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, not only Kapil
Yes.
Muni's instruction, first and foremost, before we, try and follow this instruction, let's see what is a traditional brahmachari. So once again, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, I will list all the characteristics of a traditional brahmachari that are given in the Shastra. And then you can tell me, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, because you're a brahmachari, you're authorized to speak in this regard. So you can tell me whether this principle is being followed or it has been compromised. All right, Prabhu. So Jai Dwarka Prabhu, let's
Yes,
begin.
yes, sir.
In
Yes, Prabhu, please.
the 7th canto, chapter 12 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni starts describing in the first 12 or 13 verses the duties of a brahmachari. A brahmachari, first and foremost, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, should stay in the Gurukul. So Prabhuji, are all the brahmacharis staying in a Gurukul?
Yes, for us, Gurukul is contemple only.
Oh my goodness. No, this is Gurukul. Where there
The
is,
Guru stays.
where the Guru stays. And in
Okay.
ancient times, most of the Gurus were grihastas. I hope Lord Ram's
Yes, yes,
Guru,
yes.
he was Vasishta. He had a Guru Patni. So, most of the Gurus were grihastas. They used to stay with a grihasta. They used to learn how to, they used to learn the Vedas and many other Vedic branches of knowledge. So, is this principle being followed exactly or is it slightly compromised?
Yes, sir. Slightly compromised for you.
All right. Secondly, in verse 7.12.3, it says it should study the Vedas daily directly under the Guru. Jai Dwarka Prabhu.
Mostly compromised, I think.
Wow, mostly compromise. A brahmachari should wear a mekhala. So what is a mekhala? A mekhala is like a girdle which you tie around the waist so that the brahmachari cannot sleep straight. Because if the brahmachari sleeps straight, he may have dreams which are not so good. So, but if he sleeps on the side, then mostly he will not have those dreams. So brahmachari wears mekhala, right?
Absolutely compromised.
Deer skin. I know, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, you are hiding some deer skin in your cabinet. Yes, Prabhuji?
No, Prabhuji, my chair is not made of that.
Oh my God. A brahmachari should have matted hair because there are no razors and blades to cut hair in the forest, in the Guru's ashram. So he should have matted hair. No time for washing hair. So is this principle being followed?
No, Prabhuji.
And he should carry a stick made out of the palash wood. So this is completely compromised. Acha. The 12th verse says the brahmachari shouldn't wear garlands. Is this principle being followed, Prabhu?
No, Prabhuji.
He should not apply sandalwood paste or other fragrances. And other fragrances means taking a bath using fragrant soaps and shampoos, etc. So, is this principle being followed, Prabhu?
Generally not, Prabhuji.
Right. Then he should study the branches of the Vedas every day. Vyakaran, Shiksha, Kalpa, Jyotish, astronomy, Nirukta, Vedic dictionary, Chandas, Vedic meters, along with Vedas and Upanishads. Every day, all the study of all the branches should be carried out.
Not practical, Prabhuji.
Wow, everything has become impractical. Prabhu, I think the Srimad Bhagavatam itself has become impractical for us to. What to do? Huh? So Prabhu, sometimes, the brahmacharis used to come to our, whenever they used to do programs in Mumbai, they used to speak about the high standards that the grihastas should follow, which they are not following. And sometimes I used to smile because I had read Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 12th chapter, and I knew that these standards are absolutely, impossible for any brahmachari to follow. So these are the standards that are mentioned in Shastra. I have not added any spices and condiments to these standards. As it is, I have specified it here. All right. Now, Prabhu, let's come to the modern day brahmacharya. And Prabhu, let's see what does modern day brahmacharya contain. So modern day brahmachari, Prabhu, often stays in a city. And a city is usually full of women and womanizers. Is this correct?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Right. He has little or no chance to study Vedas directly from a guru. Right.
Yes, Prabhuji.
He doesn't usually have a mekhla, matted hair, deer skin, etc. Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
He wears garlands, uses fragrances like shampoo, soaps, and sandalwood paste, etc. freely.
Yes, Prabhuji. Offered to Lord.
Offered to, yes, important. Offered to the Lord. Very nice. And he doesn't have a good chance to study traditional branches of Vedic knowledge due to a lack of such teachers in the city.
Yes, Prabhuji.
And stays in a small room. Usually has access to a cell phone or a computer along with internet.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So previously the brahmacharis would roam in the forest. They had the entire forest to roam around. Nowadays the brahmacharis have their small room and they don't have, places to roam around. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yukta hara vihar. Vihar means you should roam nicely. A brahmachari should roam nicely in the forest. But is such a facility present today with the brahmacharis too?
No, Prabhuji.
Right. Finally, a brahmachari often has a lot of lonely time, which leads to a very disastrous combination. That is a computer and phone combined with loneliness. So, is this true,
Yes.
Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So, Prabhu, I have asked you who is currently in the brahmachari ashram. And this is not the fault of a brahmachari. Please let me say, this is not the fault of a brahmachari. This is the fault of today's situation. So I am not pointing out faults in a brahmachari or in the ashram in which they are staying. I am pointing out the situation and the faults of the situation that are present here. Do you agree with all of these things, Jay Goswami?
Yes, absolutely, Prabhuji.
So, Prabhu, is it, sometimes a question may arise, can we really call it brahmacharya ashram? Don't you feel that the question will arise from time to time? Can we really call it brahmacharya ashram?
Well, I think that it can be better better named as Prod Shiksha Kendra or like Prod Information Kendra.
Okay, what does that mean in English?
Actually, when a person who has already reached his adulthood at the age of generally 25, when the time is there to pass out from Gurukul after having Brahmacharya, then we generally enter into Brahmacharya ashram. Right. So at that time, generally people have already done all kinds of things. So like they have already experienced, and now it's like either it can be called as a vanprasth or like Prod Shiksha Kendra.
Very nice. So this is the situation in the Brahmacharya ashram as we find it today. And it is very difficult. All these things make it very difficult for the brahmacharis today or for the renunciates today to practice their spiritual life. When we looked at the grihasta ashram in the last talk, we looked at the grihasta ashram with a very kind and holistic view. Similarly, we should also look at the brahmacharya ashram with the similar kind and holistic view. We should know the situations that brahmacharis are facing in the world today. Because if we don't understand this, then we cannot do justice with the brahmacharis. The brahmacharis are facing very difficult situations today. And therefore, sometimes devotees say, therefore, it is better to first, establish varnashram and villages and then carry out brahmachari ashram, where we can have an ideal brahmachari ashram. But our acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura, they intended the brahmacharis to be in the cities also and to preach. And by the time we make a village, our entire life may be spent. So who will actually reap the benefit? It is we who want to reap the benefit in this very life. So it is very difficult for the brahmacharis in today's day and age. And this is very clearly shown here. But all of this is justified. Everything is allowed. Jai Dwarka Prabhu, because of one term. And this term is in front of us. Yes, Prabhu, what are we performing?
Yukta vairagya.
This is all Yukta vairagya. Srila Rupa Goswami, he would be very surprised that, Yukta vairagya has been stretched to such a limit where the current brahmachari ashram is literally the opposite of what is specified in the tradition. So sometimes we should think, are we overstretching the boundaries of Yukta vairagya? Just because this term was given to us, Yukta vairagya, are we doing justice to it or are we overstretching it? So, therefore, sometimes, brahmacharis, they say, that's okay, we are in difficult situation, but we should try various things to protect our brahmacharya, to restrict our upastha vegam. And what is that? Some brahmacharis say, you should eat only once a day. You might have heard these solutions many times, Jai Dwarka Prabhu. You should eat only once a day.
Yes, Swami.
Or
Yes,
eat unsalted food, or maybe spend all of your time in seva. You will forget about upastha vegam. You might have heard these solutions, Prabhu. Yes.
Yes, Swami.
So, Srila Rupa Goswami also has heard all these solutions, and Srila Rupa Goswami has something to say to all of us. In the Padyavali, Srila Rupa Goswami has compiled a very beautiful verse. This is verse number 11 of Padyavali. Sri Rupa Goswami says, Kashayanna cha bhojaradi niyamanno vavane vasato Vyakhyanadatava muni vratabhara chittodbhava kriyate. So, Dhameshwar Prabhu, can you please read the translation?
The arising of lust in the heart is not stopped by kashaya, wearing saffron cloth, or taking Ayurvedic medicines for reducing sex desire, by regulating food, by staying in the forest, by explaining Shastra in various ways, or by taking a complete vow of silence.
So very clearly, Srila Rupa Goswami says that none of these methods will be helpful in preventing upastha vegam. They may be little helpful. Ultimately, these methods will turn futile. So Srila Rupa Goswami pronounces his decision. In the previous talk also, we said that Srishta Srishteshu. Only one person in this entire creation is capable of completely avoiding the dangers of associating with the opposite gender, and that is Narayan Rishi. We saw this in the previous talk. Sri Rupa Goswami says other solutions are futile. In fact, in the Mahabharata, there is a very nice Gita. There are various Gitas in the Mahabharata. The Bhagavad Gita is also there in the Mahabharata. So there are various other Gitas in the Mahabharata. One of the Gita is called as the Kama Gita, the song sung by Kamadev, or Cupid personified. So Kamadev, he very proudly says, Naham shakyonupayena hantum bhutena kenachit Yomam prayatate hantum gyatva praharane balam tasya tasmin praharane punah pradurbhavamyaham. So Kamadev, Cupid says, I cannot be slain by anyone by any existing means. If a person should seek to slay me, putting their trust in the strength of any means, it means that if somebody thinks that I will chant japa and conquer Kamadev, Kamadev says, I appear in that very means. I appear in his japa. I make him proud. And by becoming proud, that person again becomes a victim of karma. So instead of japa conquering me, I enter into that japa and I conquer them instead. Instead of swadhyaya, self-study of the Vedas conquering me, I enter into their self-study and conquer them. So this is Kama Gita in the Mahabharata, where Kamadev makes a bold proclamation that no matter which means you have, I will definitely be able to conquer all of those means. And therefore, that makes it very difficult. So there are multifarious problems that a brahmachari faces in his life. And by the term brahmachari, I also mean ladies who are staying in a brahmacharini ashram, because some places in the world we have ashrams or facilities even for ladies who are staying as brahmacharinis. So they are facing multifarious problems, multiple levels of problems. First and foremost, sometimes when they're staying in the ashram, I've stayed for some time in the ashram. Sometimes the relationships between one brahmachari and other brahmachari are not really cordial. The relationships are often very cold, sometimes very harsh in their behavior. Sometimes it's very judgmental. And this may happen often when there are many people who are trying to suppress their senses, but they are staying in one place. Secondly, there is no financial freedom because a brahmachari is not allowed to earn. So a brahmachari has very limited or almost no financial freedom. So even before spending money, a brahmachari has to ask various authorities. Once a brahmachari, he made a little fun of the grihasta ashram. He said that, in the grihasta ashram, you always have to listen to one wife. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So one grihasta replied, well, in the grihasta ashram, we have to listen to one wife, but in the brahmachari ashram, you have to listen to 10 wives, because there are 10 authorities over your head and you cannot say no to anyone. So it's like having 10 wives over your head all the time. You have to listen to all of them and you can't say no to them. So sometimes in the brahmachari ashram, it becomes more difficult. Thirdly, there is free access to electronics as well as the internet. The senses are definitely very strong. And a brahmachari is lonely, even though he stays in a crowd. A brahmachari goes to various programs, kirtans, harinams, but, doesn't have a family, basically, an immediate family. So it is very much possible that sometimes a brahmachari may experience loneliness. Jai Dwarka Prabhu, are all of these a proper characterization of the difficulties that are there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Is there anything
Seems
which I
to
have
cover.
anything which I have overstated?
Just one thing, Prabhuji, I would say that this is generally are the things, but again, it depends upon the atmosphere of different temples, and these things vary in different temples depending upon the atmosphere and understanding of devotees.
Right. I agree that in some places all the factors may not be there, but these are the potential problems which may be there. So that is, that is definitely possible. Thank you, Prabhu. So when so many problems are there, sometimes a brahmachari may ask that by staying in the situation, what am I achieving? And therefore we see that although the brahmachari ashram is such a noble ashram that brahmacharis devote themselves selflessly to the cause of spiritual life, many individuals are not able to stay for long in the brahmachari ashram. So as of now, as of today, in many places in the world, either there is no brahmachari ashram, or either the brahmachari ashram has very few devotees. Maybe in India, the brahmachari ashram is booming, but outside India, the brahmachari ashram is not so booming because of multifarious problems that are there. So I have represented all these problems, as a result of which often the brahmacharis are facing many difficult situations. Now, as I said, sometimes the brahmacharis say, better is to live an austere life and have 24-hour engagement. Because if you have 24-hour engagement, the mind will not have a chance to think of lust. And this is specified many times in Shastra. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, tapasa brahmacharyana, that you should live your life by austerity and celibacy. Rishabdev says in the first teaching, tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam, which means that engage in divine austerity, live your life full of austerity. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate, that you should have practice and detachment, even though you may be failing. So, in this way, so many, recommendations are given for the Brahmachari ashram, that they should live a life of austerity and complete engagement 24 hours a day. So 24 hours a day engagement will ensure that the mind remains free of the desire of kama or upastha vegam. So, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, do these solutions appear good?
Partially good, Prabhuji.
What is the problem in these solutions?
Because Prabhuji, external situation may not, because this is a voluntary ashram. So in voluntary ashram, the person has to invest his will in each and everything.
Right.
And while serving, a person has to deal with so many other individuals also, who may not be so logical and who may not be so understanding. So when such external pressures come and he is not able to express himself, although his intentions are good, then at times then demotivation comes and the person tends to feel low. And in those situations, even though he has engagement, but he is not inspired because of external factors.
Beautiful. So you've described the situation precisely. So this looks good on paper, that one should have brahmacharya, one should practice austerities, but the mind is sometimes so disturbed because the external situation itself is so unfavorable. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to practice this. Maybe some brahmachari may be able to practice this completely well, very nicely, and be able to conquer all of his senses and live nicely. Maybe very austere brahmachari. You might have seen a few brahmacharis who are like that, who are very austere, who stay very simply, who manage to do all of this. At the same time, it is a fact that they are restricting the external senses, but still the desire for rasa is present, because rasa doesn't go away till one sees a higher rasa. This is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah. Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Rameshwar Prabhu, can you please read the translation?
Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness.
All right. So, I have heard something, Dhameshwar Prabhu. Please let me know if this is true. You can only experience a higher taste once you have completely purified your mind. Have I heard this correctly in our society?
Yeah, I think that is said, but I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that. But haven't you heard this line of thought being specified in our society from time to time? That without anartha nivritti, you cannot gain a higher taste.
Yes.
All right. So, but Prabhu, there is a sequence given here. Rasa varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. First comes param drishtva and then comes nivartate. So, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, you might have heard this, that first you should have complete freedom from sense enjoyment, and then only you can experience a higher taste. Am I correct?
Yes, Puji, I have generally, I think, but this is also highlighted in a way that as much as you are able to free from sense enjoyment, the more I think it goes together.
Very nice. But here there is something else being said. Rasa varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. First comes param drishtva, then comes nivartate. So, what happens first? Does nivartate happen first or param drishtva happen first?
Param drishtva, Prabhuji.
Yes. What instead we are doing is, sometimes we are putting the cart before the horse. Sometimes we are saying first you should become fully detached and then only you will be able to experience a higher taste. Whereas what the Bhagavad Gita says is param drishtva, having seen something higher, nivartate, then he gives up the lower. That is when the horse is put right in front of the cart. So param drishta has to come first. A higher taste has to come first, then a lower taste can be given up. And this is what a brahmachari should aim for. Because unless a brahmachari has something higher to aim for, there is absolutely no reason why he should give up the lower taste. So a brahmachari should have some higher taste to aim for, to aspire for. Now, if somebody says, no, first you cultivate vairagya, first you should have renunciation. Srila Rupa Goswami says, don't fall into this trap. Please don't fall into the trap of thinking that simply by becoming a good renunciate, simply by becoming a good brahmachari, or simply by controlling the senses very well, one automatically becomes a nice devotee. This thinking in itself is a big trap. Srila Rupa Goswami has very clearly specified in the Upadeshamritam. Jnana vairagya yor bhakti praveshayopayogita ishad prathamam eveti nangatvam uchitam tayoh. Sri Rupa Goswami says, Jnana Vairagya Yor, a little bit, Isha, little bit of Jnana, knowledge, and Vairagya, renunciation. Praveshaya Upayogita, they are useful for entering into Bhakti. Renunciation is useful. Vairagya is useful for entering into Bhakti. Ishat Prathamam Eveti, little bit in the beginning. Later, natural renunciation comes as a result of following Bhakti. But one doesn't have to cultivate renunciation separately once one becomes a devotee. In the beginning, a little bit of renunciation is needed. Otherwise, if renunciation was so important, Rupa Goswami would have included renunciation, vairagya, amongst the 64 limbs of bhakti. Jayadwarka Prabhu, is vairagya one of the 64 limbs of bhakti?
No, Prabhuji.
Is brahmacharya one of the 64 limbs of bhakti?
No, Prabhuji.
Then why is it so stressed when Rupa Goswami himself doesn't stress it so much? Because if it was so important, it would be included in 64 limbs. If it was really so important, it would be included in the 9 forms of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam. But it is not included in any of the list. Rupa Goswami is so maturely saying that that little bit of renunciation is required in the beginning. Don't do it too much. There is a big loss in overdoing renunciation. Big loss. Somebody who is over renunciate is going to lose out on something very major. And I'll speak about this today itself. So Jiva Goswami says in the commentary, Bhakti pravishtasya vairagyam chitta kathinya hetutaya heyatvenoktam. For a person who's entered into bhakti, bhakti pravishtasya, vairagyam, the over cultivation of renunciation, is heyatvenok, is to be rejected. Why? Because chitta kathinya hetutaya. Because it hardens the heart. If we over cultivate renunciation, the heart becomes very hard towards everything in the world. And Jayadwarka Prabhu, what is the harm if the heart becomes hard? Please tell me.
Bhakti, I think one who is hard-hearted can never ever be deep into emotions, and bhakti is all about having emotions, and love is all about emotion.
Beautiful. So a person who is very hard-hearted loses the capability to experience bhakti ras. And his hard-heartedness, he projects everywhere as his advancement in bhakti. Whereas Srila Rupa Goswami has said very clearly that Jiva Goswami has said hard-heartedness is to be rejected, as specified here, where he has said that heyatvenoktam, heya, to be rejected. So if somebody cultivates over vairagya, over renunciation, the heart becomes hard. You will generally see such people speaking ill of the material world from time to time. Constantly they are criticizing the material world. Material world is the worst place in the world. You might have heard Jai Varka Prabhu, many individuals who speak like this. The worst place in the
Yes,
world.
yes, Prabhuji.
It is full of
Yes, Prabhuji.
putrid substances. Every human body is nothing but a collection of stool and urine, and it is fit to be
Yes,
discarded. Yes, Prabhu.
yes, Prabhuji.
And
Yes,
then
Prabhuji. Very
you
commonly.
might ask them a question. All right, Prabhu, you have very nicely pointed out what is the problem. But Prabhu, what is the solution? The solution is to go back home, back to Godhead. But how? By following Brahmacharya. But there is no room. Rupa Goswami says it hardens your heart. How do we go? What is the solution? There are many people who are expert in listing down the problem, who are very expert in framing the problem. What is the problem in the material world? But it requires great maturity to give a solution. Now that we know that the material world is a fit to be rejected place, what do we do with it? Because at the end of the day, we're staying here for a long time. We're going to stay here for a long time. If we're going to stay here for a long time, we have to have some good engagement in our minds. And what do we do with the material world? Srila Rupa Goswami therefore warns that the over-renunciate is going to lose out on something. Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Nivrittanupayogitvad duruhatvadayam rasaha. Srila Rupa Goswami very clearly mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Nivritta anupayogitvad. This Madhurya Ras is unfit to be relished by those who are too detached. Very clear. When he is giving 5 rasas, Shanta Ras, Tasya Ras, Sakhya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, Madhurya Ras, he says Nivritta, those who are detached, Anupayogitvat. They are unfit for Madhurya Ras. So now Jiva Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami comes and comments. He tells us what Rupa Goswami wants to say. He says, Nivritteshu prakrita shringara rasa samadrishtya bhagavatadapyasmad rasad virekteshu anupyogitvat ayogyatvat. He says, amongst those who are detached, there are individuals who think of all Madhurya Ras as being similar to mundane romance. So we will see many such renunciates. Whenever Madhurya Ras comes, they immediately say, change the topic. We don't want to discuss this. Change the topic. We are not comfortable with this. All right? So they never ever touch these topics. Never ever. And because of never ever touching these topics, because they feel that if we touch these topics, it is like mundane romance. So thus, such individuals stay away from Madhurya Ras even if it is given in the Bhagavatam. So even in the Bhagavatam, they will not read Krishna's passage with the gopis. Basically, Jiva Goswami is saying. Such renunciates are ineligible. Ayogyatvat. Jiva Goswami says in the commentary. So as you said very clearly, Jayadvarka Prabhu, it makes them unfit for relishing Bhakti Ras, and specifically one Bhakti Ras, which is Madhurya Ras. So Jayadvarka Prabhu, now a question to you. If Lord Krishna comes to you tonight and says, Jayadvarka Prabhu, tomorrow morning when you wake up, there will be no desire left in your heart. Absolutely all desire for Kama will be wiped out. There will be you will feel no emotion. You will become the most perfect brahmachari. Is that what you want?
No, the no emotion part was not good. Otherwise,
Oh
it was.
my God. Why? Prabhu, emotions are Maya.
And without being emotion, it's just like being a dead stone.
Wonderful. So, those who want to stop their desires by stopping all emotions, they are going to lose out big time in the domain of bhakti. And therefore, Rupa Goswami has given a warning that please take care that in the process of cultivating renunciation, you don't become an impersonalist. Basically, you don't become so nivritta, so detached that you become incapable of experiencing bhakti ras. Then all you will have is your renunciation to show to the entire world. And the world may praise you that you are such a nice renunciate, but you have nothing positive to offer to the world except for disgusting reviews of the material world. That is all that you have to offer. So that is the only contribution of the over renunciate. So that we do not want. Therefore, Rupa Goswami has given this warning. Because if we truly want to progress, Jai Dwarka Prabhu, do you wish to
Yes,
progress
Prabhuji.
ahead in Bhakti?
Yes, Prabhuji.
And which ras is the best ras, Prabhu, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya?
Obviously, Prabhuji, Madhurya Ras.
All right. So, Prabhu, tomorrow, let's say, you start progressing in Madhurya Ras. Tomorrow, when we start progressing, in the future, when we progress, what will we have to learn in Madhurya Ras? What all things will we have to learn? So, we will have to learn even the Brahmachari or grihasta or vanaprastha or sannyasi. Everybody has to learn about Madhurya Ras. And when they learn about Madhurya Ras, they have to learn about so many aspects of Madhurya Ras, which a brahmachari who is over dedicated to renunciation may never be able to understand. For example, Srimati Radharani, she is described as a Naika. Naika means she is the ideal female protagonist, ideal, or what we say, heroine for the hero Shri Krishna. So that is how we can discuss. Sri Rupa Goswami describes that as a Naika, she takes on 8 roles: Abhisarika, Vasaka Sajja, Utkanthita, Vipralabdha, Khandita, Kalahantarita, Proshita Bhartrika, Swadhina Bhartrika. Now, have you heard these terms, Jai Dwarka Prabhu?
No, Prabhuji.
All right. So this is what the future is going to look like if you progress in Madhurya Ras. Just a sneak peek into the future. Srimati Radharani takes various moods and she is known as Naika. And when she displays these various moods, these moods are categorized into 8 types. These are 8 types of Naikas that Srila Rupa Goswami has described. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami describes these names. These are technical names. I will describe one by one what is Abhisarika, what is Vasak Sajja. Abhisarika is a Naika, is a heroine who tells her lover, that is Krishna, to meet at a designated spot. And then she dresses up accordingly. If it is Krishna Paksha, if it is the dark fortnight, she will wear dark clothes so that she cannot be seen. If it is Shukla Paksha, if it is the bright fortnight, she will wear bright clothes so that she cannot be seen. She wears ornaments so that ornaments won't make any noise. She walks very quietly. This is the first type of Naika who goes to meet at her lover at a place. She is known as Abhisarika. The second type of Naika is known as Vasaka Sajja. She reaches there, but the lover has not reached. Bhagavan Shri Krishna has not reached. So she sits there. She continues to decorate herself. She also decorates the place all around. So she decorates the Punjan. So this she is known as Vasak Sajja. She is busy decorating. In her heart, she thinks, yes, my lover Shri Krishna will definitely come. Third is Utkanthita. The lover is late as usual. The lover is on Indian Standard Time. So Krishna is late. So Krishna is late, she becomes Utkanthita. She becomes eager. Her mind is, she is having various doubts. Where is he? He has not come. God knows what has happened. Is he with somebody else? This is Utkanthita. Then comes Vipralabdha. Vipralabdha means for a long time, he doesn't come. Half the night has passed. She starts crying. God knows why he did not come. I had decorated myself for him. He did not come. Then Khandita. Finally, he comes in the final part of the night and his eyes are red and rolling. And on his chest, there is kumkum and his garland is, half broken, which indicates that he has been with some other gopi. So she understands that Shri Krishna has, cheated upon me. So then she becomes Khandita. So she starts cursing him. That is Khandita. And then Krishna falls at her feet and begs for forgiveness. And then she curses Krishna. And after cursing Krishna, she becomes guilty upon her own self. This is known as Kalahantarita, where Krishna is at her feet and praying for mercy. And then there is Proshita Bhartrika. Proshita Bhartrika basically is a type of Naika in which, her beloved has gone to a faraway place, Mathura or Dwarka. So she has stopped decorating herself nicely. She's experiencing separation, etc. And finally, Swadhina Bhartrika, when the Nayak comes back, when the beloved comes back, and he is completely under the control. He's wrapped around her little finger. And that is what Swadhina Bhartrika is. So Jai Dwarka Prabhu, how does this sound? Please tell.
Yes. Very, like looks very esoteric.
Right?
So,
But all the ashrams have to study this. Huh? There is no escaping this. All right? Because
yes.
our acharyas have given to us. Some devotees think after I die, I will learn all of this. But Rupa Goswami did not write for those who are dead. Rupa Goswami wrote for those who are alive and kicking, as they say in the English language. For those who are alive and kicking. So these books were written for all of us. The Padyavali was translated by a Brahmachari in Hindi. His name was Shri Vanamali Das Shastri. He was Brahmachari, a very dedicated worshipper of Sakhyaras. And he was a very brilliant knower of the Sanskrit language. He used to stay in Vrindavan. He wrote so many glorifications of Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura, all the Vaishnavas of his times. But he was a Brahmachari. And he's perfect Brahmachari. Who understood in the Padyavali, all these Nayikas are there. He translated all of it. And that is where I got it from. I learned this from a Brahmachari, Jai Dwarka Prabhu. I learned all of this from the translations done by a Brahmachari. How does that sound, Jai Dwarka Prabhu?
Very, again, inspiring.
So, that is what a Brahmachari should aim for. A Brahmachari should aim for complete service to Bhagavan Shri Krishna. That is the aim of his life. That is the success of his life. Some over-renunciate may think that one should not, indulge in smaran or such variety of raganuga bhakti. But the acharyas have clearly said, please don't neglect your advancement. Sri Narottam Das Thakur says, Sadhana smarana lila iha tera karhela kaya mane kariya susara. Sadhana smarana lila iha tera karhela. Never think of neglecting your daily sadhan and your daily smaran of the divine couple. O brahmachari, O grihasta, O vanaprastha, O sannyasi, never neglect your smaran, never neglect your sadhan, because this is your advancement. You have to perfect your spiritual body in your mind in this life. Kaya mane kariya susar. So you have to do susar, you have to perfect your kaya, your spiritual body, money in your mind in this very life. So all devotees from all ashramas should never neglect their aspiration for the divine service of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. Every morning, all the sadhakas are praying that Seva adhikare diye karo nija dasi. In the Tulsi Arti, they are all praying. Brahmacharis are also praying that please make me your maid servant. Oh Tulsi Maharani, make me your maid servant. But when the opportunity arises, oh yes, here it is, an opportunity for remembering Radha and Krishna. Then Narottam Das Thakur says, don't neglect. Don't think that this is against your vairagya. This is actually true vairagya. This is param drishtva nivartate. This is what will help us come out of the lower tastes. Otherwise, there is nothing in the material world which will help us come out of the lower taste. No, Rupa Goswami is clearly declared, not by wearing saffron cloth, not by having regulations of diet, etc. It's not going to happen. So that path has already been tried and tested. That path leads to a failure. Please don't walk on the same path. So this is what is the advice of the previous acharyas. Shri Narottam Das Thakur also says, Manera smarana pran madhura madhura dham yugala vilasa smriti sara sadhya sadhanai ihavayarana ei tattva sarva tattva sara. O sadhaka, manera smarana pran. The life of the mind is to perform smaran of the divine couple. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this and says, the mind is alive when it is performing smaran of Bhagwan. If the mind is not performing smaran of Bhagwan, of Radha Krishna, the mind becomes dead. And just as dogs or wolves or vultures eat a dead body, similarly, the dogs and wolves and vultures of lust, anger, and greed will eat up the mind which is dead, which is not performing smaran. This is the means and this is the goal. There is nothing beyond this. This principle is the essence of all principles. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So, this is what the Acharyas have said. Now, I would like to, in a final section, because Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura is our Acharya, and he is one of the strictest Acharyas who established the Brahmachari ashram in the cities in the Gaudiya Math. Jai Dwarka Prabhu, the Brahmachari ashram originally was founded in our movement in the Gaudiya Math. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura is the one who established the Brahmachari ashram right in the cities. What was his thought process in establishing Brahmachari ashram? What is his vision for a Brahmachari? This is what I would like to specify today. And after everything is specified, I would like to take a comment from you about what you think. So this English is generally a little difficult to understand. I'll try to make it as easy as possible. Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura wrote an article called as The Killing of Vatsasura. Vatsasura is one of the demons who comes in Krishna Lila. So Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura wrote in an article. He says, Vatsasura is one of the demons slain by the boy Krishna. He represents evils that are peculiar to boyhood. Basically, when a boy starts growing up, basically he develops within him kama or lust or attraction towards the opposite gender. That is what he's saying. The neophyte is extremely susceptible to such evils. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says they cannot be got rid of except by the mercy of Krishna. So if one is not able to follow Brahmacharya in the Brahmachari ashram, the reason is because they don't have the mercy of Bhagavan. If one engages in the service of Krishna, the juvenile vices means these problematic tendencies in young devotees, especially brahmacharis, are completely eradicated at an early stage. He goes ahead to say, the scriptures say that it is not in the power of man to ensure the immunity of boys and girls from the blight of precocious sensuousness. In simple words, it is not within the power of any human or any institution to prevent people from developing lust or attraction for the opposite gender. Nobody can prevent this attraction, except only one thing can prevent, by the means of service of Krishna. This is declared to be the only effective and natural method. Because once a person learns the service of Krishna, he gets a higher taste. As I had specified in the previous slides, Rupa Goswami gives a higher taste in the form of Madhurya Ras. This is the effective and natural method. He continues to say that now he is speaking about, celibacy as it is seen in the West, in the church. So the church has a very strict view of celibacy, but that view is not really very good. So he says, the puritanic ideal of Godhead is a conception which owes its origin to persons who are elderly enough, although honestly enough, anxious to establish the kingdom of God on this earth. So this, he says there are some people who want to establish kingdom of God. Basically is referring to the church. They want to establish kingdom of God on earth, and this they want to establish because they're elderly people, honest people, and therefore they are propagating a puritanic view that everybody should be pure, there should be no adultery. Adultery is one of the cardinal sins within Christianity. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, but if you scratch the surface of their sage and sober scheme as befitting their age, you only detect the rotten arrangement for securing the maximum of sensuous enjoyment, even for those very children who are brought up in this virtuous way. So what he's trying to say is, basically, why do such people want to make celibates? In the Western world, especially in Christian traditions, why do they want to make celibates? The reason for making celibates is so that they can remain pure And what will happen by remaining pure? Later in life, they can basically enjoy nicely according to the will of God. So he specifies this. If the child is allowed to spoil his health in boyhood, think these righteous people, he will not be in a position later on to enjoy the legitimate pleasure of the grown-up man. Unless the young man husbands his resources of sense capacity, he will also be a victim to premature old age. So what he's trying to say is, in the West, the church, especially the clergy, they specify celibacy so much because if a person loses his semen a lot, he will prematurely become old, he will have health issues. Therefore, one should have celibacy, and therefore celibacy brings you closer to God because it is more natural. He says it is a policy of expediency of postponing a small present enjoyment for reaping much larger measure of it through the long tracts of the years to come. He says basically most of the world celibacy is nothing but preventing sense enjoyment right now so that you can have a different type of greater sense enjoyment later. You see on YouTube any video on the benefits of brahmacharya, they will say the same thing. What are the benefits of brahmacharya? Your face will be effulgent. You will have a lot of energy. But what will you do by having an effulgent face and a lot of energy? These are all material benefits basically. So Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura says this idea of brahmacharya is basically not correct because the final aim of this brahmacharya is nothing but more enjoyment. That is what this idea of brahmacharya is. Therefore, he very clearly says, he uses the term the spurious brahmacharya ideal as misconceived by its worldly supporters embodies this puritanic outlook. He says this is the spurious, or this is the what we say duplicate or false idea of brahmacharya, which is supported by those who are puritanic in their outlook. The scriptures indeed enjoin that everyone should serve Godhead from the womb. This is the real meaning of brahmacharya. So service of Brahma, the absolute truth, is brahmacharya, and one can do this from the very womb. The ascetic practices that have come to attach themselves to the conception were interpolated into the scripture in order to ensure worldly values by this form of the empiric method. There are so many people who think that ascetic practices, renunciation is brahmacharya, but these practices are the products of the minds of people, and they were inserted by people in scriptures to ensure that people remain morally on the correct path. Only to ensure worldly morality is such brahmacharya promoted in the world. He very clearly says this. Further, he says, the practices of asceticism are really conceived in the Epicurean spirit, which means that people become ascetics really so that they can enjoy later. The ascetic dreams of obtaining mastery over nature by the method of controlling his senses. He says that those who want to become brahmacharis, they think that I will master my senses. And if the senses grow callous to the temptations of the world, the ascetic thinks that he will have less chance of falling into the power of nature. He has an idea that when he will have perfected these defensive arrangements, he will become the real master of the situation. Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura says that those who are becoming renunciates, they think that somehow I should obtain mastery over material nature. And when I am in complete control of all my senses, I am the master of the situation. But what will you do after mastering all the senses? The positive is not specified anywhere. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakura rejects this idea and says, we have had many occasions to explain that the spiritual is transcendental. No mundane consideration can form any part of spiritual training or conduct. So even mundane brahmacharya training is not really spiritual training. It is not a spiritual affair to be even able to control one's carnal desires. There is nothing spiritual to be able to control one's lust, he says very clearly. Such self-control is indeed automatically produced by the awakening of the soul. And self-control is not a function of a soul. The soul has nothing to do with the senses. The soul desires neither sensual nor sexual purity. The soul is not a mere mortal being. The soul has nothing to do with brahmacharya. Naham vipro, nachanarapatir, napi vaishyo, na shudro, naham varni. I am not a brahmachari. And he says, if brahmacharya means a method of gaining moral power, it is wholly a mundane affair, and is as such not one of no concern to the soul, but is positively obstructive of spiritual well-being. So if brahmacharya is simply a method of gaining some superior power, then it is obstructive to the path of bhajan. Rupa Gosvami also said this. It will obstruct your bhakti if you overdo it. It has limited importance in bhakti. So please know that the best way of becoming a brahmachari is to factually realize what is the divine reality in the domain of rasa. Basically, to realize the transcendental pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna. Actually, he says the soul rejects nothing, because the soul should not even reject sex. The soul rejects nothing. He regards nothing as redundant or useless. The soul has a use for everything. So even sex life has a use, but that use is there in the spiritual world. So therefore, there is no use rejecting something, a principle altogether. Finally, he says everything is absolutely good on the plane of the soul. The scriptural Brahmacharya institution accordingly means service of Brahman. That is, the reality is always great and always the help. The servant of the absolute is free from all delusion. So basically, Brahmacharya means, he says Brahmacharya means service to Krishna using all of one's senses. And if all of that senses also means, transcendental senses in which one is serving Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world, and one is experiencing Madhurya Ras. So this experience of Madhurya Ras, service of Radha and Krishna, is actually what true Brahmacharya is. And therefore, he established Brahmacharya even in the cities. And therefore, his conception of Brahmacharya is the transcendental conception of Brahmacharya, which Srila Rupa Gosvami also envisioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It makes the Brahmachari eligible for experiencing Madhurya Ras. So, dear devotees, I think I have spoken quite a lot, but this is not the end of the topic, because I have spoken about the ashrams, who are renunciates, and I have spoken about the ashrams who are those who are in the grihasta ashram. But then there are devotees who are in none of the ashrams, and there are devotees who are in ashrams but who are still experiencing difficulties. So we'll try to do something for them in the next week. But this was, an understanding of upastha vegam and how to control it in the brahmachari ashram specifically. With this, dear devotees, I would like to pause my speech. Jai Dwarka Prabhu, I would like to take a comment or two from you first. Yes, Prabhuji, what do you think?
Yes, Suji, actually, I really liked the entire presentation. Why? Because in the last presentation also you highlighted the burning issue of the actually society, that where we are lacking and what is being highlighted should actually not be highlighted. Rather, all practical aspects should be explained, and where we should focus. And the same thing you did today also, that we stress too much on engagement, and so many other solutions, and we stop the real solution, which you highlighted in the end, is to focus on the loving service of the Lord and to develop a higher taste, and always remembering Lord. That is the real solution, instead of trying to do some mundane endeavors. So you highlighted, actually, you again took the burning issues, and you highlighted the practical and the solution, which is actually really going to work. So this is really amazing, Prabhuji, I would say.
Thank you, Prabhu. If that stamp comes from a brahmachari, then I am very happy, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So I heard Prabhuji many times this thing from Amogya Prabhuji. He used to say that Radha Govind Maharaj used to say in his lecture that Karda Muni's grihasta ashram was like that. Hundreds and thousands of brahmacharis are नौछावर हैं इनके ऊपर, in Hindi we say. They can be sacrificed. So I would say the same. That like your the teachers like you and the devotees in grihasta ashram like you are like that. That thousands of brahmacharis are like आपके for नौछारा nothing in front of you.
I'll happily sacrifice myself for one Joy Dwarka. So that is
no, that's your humility.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So, Namaskar, Prabhu. Over to you, Prabhuji. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. So nice how you bring just all your years and years of deep study of so many scriptures and resources from our tradition to illuminate the particular topics that we're going through in great detail. Thank you very much. So Jai Dwarka Prabhu, I think you're finished with your questions and comments.
Question is there, Prabhuji? In case you feel others can ask, so no issues, I can wait.
You go ahead. Yes. Go ahead.
You can
Prabhuji.
ask
Okay,
Sharma.
okay, Prabhuji. Okay, yes, Prabhuji, yes. Prabhuji, in the last part of the presentation, you highlighted that how by serving the Radha Krishna, that is the only way of getting real taste. But Prabhuji, I was thinking one practical challenge in this situation is that which comes because many times the leader under whom a brahmachari is serving is not so mature again because of some misconceptions as you have highlighted. So what happens is that this point is stressed too much that one should do the needful which is there rather than focusing on the one's swabhav jaise. If somebody is having swabhav for shastra study or somebody is having swabhav for Vaishnav seva or somebody is having swabhav for book distribution, then he may be asked, okay, you should do this because this is needed. And if that is there for some particular period of time, then it's good. It helps the devotee to become mature also and to adjust and cooperate. But if that is the thing which is there, which he is being asked to do over and over the years, then it is not something good. And in the name of just being cooperating, so and this point is highlighted and artificial surrender, I would say, like is many times imposed by some people, maybe if their understanding is not good, or maybe the devotee or like this understanding is not good. Some of them, one of them is not correct. So this point again, this practical issue, I would like to have clarification from you. Which one is good, to go by one swabhava or to always do what is needful and what is being asked by seniors?
Correct. So let me simplify the question for a brahmachari, especially those who are serving in a temple. Sometimes they are staying in temples where the authorities don't really understand their nature. And because they don't understand their nature, the authorities give them some seva, which is initially maybe compatible with their nature, but later it becomes incompatible with their nature. And because that happens, the brahmachari feels suffocated in the ashram. And what should be done? Should one follow one's swabhav, one's nature, or should one follow the authorities? So very clearly, see, the authorities, we have some gratitude towards them because they are maintaining the brahmachari, providing the brahmachari with all the facilities. So that gratitude should definitely be there. But there is a limit to how much a brahmachari can sacrifice for that sake. So once the brahmachari starts feeling heavily that my spiritual life is being compromised, my bhajan is suffering, then the brahmachari has a right to take a decision in this regard. But that decision should be taken by consulting one's diksha or shiksha guru. So if the diksha or shiksha guru, they give the confirmation that you should do this for the sake of improvement in your bhajan, then one should definitely do this. Srila Gosvami says this in the Bhakti Sandarbha, and I will point it out in the Bhakti Sandarbha where Srila Goswami says, because it's important to see the praman in this regard. So he says in one of the, in Bhakti Sandarbha Anuched 238, I am specifying this here. You can see on the screen. He says, Shri Guru Agyaya Tat Sevana Virodhena Chanyesham Api Vaishnavanam Sevanam Shreya Anyatha Doshah Syat. Shri Guru Agyaya, by the permission of the Diksha Guru, Tat Sevana Avirodhena, anything which does not cause hindrance to the service of the Guru. Anyesham Vaishnavanam Sevanam Shreya, then you can serve other Vaishnavas. Anyatha Doshah Syat, but if you put other Vaishnavas before your Diksha Guru and Bhajan Guru, then it will lead to a fault, big fault. So between serving other Vaishnavas and serving your Diksha and Bhajan Gurus, one should give first priority to the service of one's Bhajan Guru, one's Diksha Guru. But, if some other Vaishnava is saying, no, neglect your Guru, your Bhajan Guru, and instead do what I am saying, then it may lead to a fault. Shri Jiva Goswami has clearly said that. I am repeating here the words of Shri Jiva Goswami. So one should listen to one's Bhajan Guru. If it is becoming too negative for oneself, one's spiritual life, then one should take a decision in consultation with one's Diksha Guru or with one's Bhajan Guru. So I hope that is clear enough.
Yes, Prabhuji. Just one follow-up question in this, Prabhuji, but this is possible only when in a scenario where spiritual master is very easily approachable. But in our society where spiritual master is not, for example, he's having 50,000 disciples, so then it becomes very difficult to go and clarify regularly, and at the same time it may also happen many times that the spiritual master has left the planet, and in such cases what is the option for the devotee?
Every devotee should have a Bhajan Guru. Therefore I said, not only a Diksha Guru, but a Bhajan Guru, a Guru who is, at least one Guru should be available, right? It should not be that I have 0 Gurus available with me. The one Guru who is a Bhajan Guru, who is a very nice senior Vaishnava, should be available for consultation. We should listen to them. So that Bhajan Guru should be consulted in this regard. Right?
Okay, yes. Just one small more question I had.
Right.
Prabhuji, in the beginning you mentioned that too much of vairagya also makes the person hard-hearted.
Right.
So if we see in front of some examples where the person is also very good at heart, very loving to all the devotees, at the same time he is very detached in his personal sense gratification, very detached and too much austere. Should we only take this as advancement of his bhakti?
Not only towards others, is he loving towards Radha and Krishna? That is the litmus test. Basically, how favorably is he able to remember, perform smaran and bhajan of Bhagavan? Because somebody may be detached in personal life and his desires may be coming out in the form of other relationships, like friendships, like, meeting new people. The litmus test is how much attachment they have for remembering, chanting, hearing about Shri Radha Krishna. That is the litmus test.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
And I'm very happy to say that I have a friend like you who is situated in such a nice temple, ISKCON of Dwarka, this very nice temple president, Sri Amok Leela Prabhu, who is so helpful and encouraging to study Shastra and do so many services. Prabhu. So all glories to Amok Leela Prabhu, all glories to you.
Yes, Prabhuji. Obviously, Prabhuji is really the reason. That's why I said in that slide where you was asking this, all these are present in Brahmacharis. That's why I said that in many temples, because of the situations, many things are not. So that's why. And that experience I got from my temple only.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Many of those are not there in my temple. By Krishna's mercy.
Hare Krishna.
Ananga Mohan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thanks a lot for such a wonderful and practical presentation. In a last so many years, I have not seen such a presentation which are taking such a practical situation in action. Prabhuji, my question is, in many of your lectures, and you to tell about the ras, that ras, if a higher taste is there, then the lower taste absolutely will be not appealing to the conditioned soul. And you and Acharyas also state the smaran should not be neglected. So generally in our society, we are not so much aware about how we can cultivate the smaran. Generally, we focus on kirtan and japa and all that. But when you states in your Padyavali lectures, and we start touching that ras aspect, and we feel wonderful enough. But how to systematically cultivate that smaran prakriya in our daily bhajan? Can you please elaborate on that? Thanks.
Right. So you're saying that you heard me speaking about smaran and this. And sometimes it's not easy to speak about that because some devotees have their fixed conceptions that smaran should absolutely not be spoken about. Although our society is named around smaran, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The name of the society itself has smaran in it. But it is an unfortunate fact that there are many individuals who feel threatened simply by the mention of the name smaran. What should I do? It's an unfortunate situation. Therefore, I have to speak because it is very much needed that somebody should speak. And there is ample evidence in the Shastra that smaran is the most important limb of Raganuga Bhakti. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in Bhagavatam Chandrika, that Smaran is the most important link of Raganuga Bhakti. But some individuals become threatened but simply by the word Raganuga Bhakti. So what to do? What can we do? So it is an unfortunate thing, but still, if somebody wants to cultivate a healthy culture of Smaran, then what one should do is one should start from the beginning. The beginning is that Srila Prabhupada has given us a very nice book which we can read daily. This is called Krishna. So one should start reading Krishna book every day. And for reading Krishna book, you don't need to read Srimad Bhagavatam in sequence. Krishna book you can read, anybody can read Krishna book. So Krishna book you can read every day. The purpose of Krishna book is to facilitate our Smaran. Now, when we read Srimad Bhagavatam in sequence, then we will also come across the 10th canto, which has many more details. The verses are there. So once we finish the 9 cantos in sequence, then we can go through the 10th canto. In 10th canto, once we finish, so our Smaran will automatically increase. Once the Smaran increases, then we can look forward to other literature written by our previous acharyas, Gopal Champu, Anand Vrindavan Champu, etc. But these are, this is, the sequence of literatures. How to progress as a sadhaka, this will be mentioned in 8th verse of Upadeshamritam. When we come to that, because 8th verse of Upadeshamritam will speak directly about Smaran. Directly about Smaran. Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtananu Smrityahu. Smrityahu. Smaran will be mentioned there directly. There I will start speaking about Smaran also. Because the verse itself is mentioning Smaran. So I will have to speak about Smaran there. So there I will speak about what Smaran is and what is the paripati. What is the sequence of progressing in Smaran. So that is a subject matter which will come up in a later class. And I would like to cover there in detail. So I hope you stick with us till that point of time, Prabhu. And I'm going to thank you so much for your question.
Srinath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I hope our speaker Hari Pārṣada Prabhu and everyone is doing well. It's very explosive presentation you gave today, and I think main question will come in your next class because I need to hear it again. Many things I heard for the first time, though I'm hearing from past so many years. They were new. So I have a very generic question for you, and then one which bewildered me, the second question. So let me ask first the generic question, which is, like, our scriptures are very futuristic. This also I heard from your grace. And, in that sense, why these things are not accounted? We hear in different planetary systems, there may be more, or less, the recommended scriptures. For us, it is Vedas and, Puranas here in this planetary system. This cycle of, Satyuga, Dwapar, Treta, and Kali Yuga is repetitive. Shastras remain same for all the yugas. They have seen Kali Yuga multiple times, but still, why this narrative is always brought up? Oh, today we are living in urban society, and that's the problem. So this is a very generic question that always, come to my mind, because our scriptures are full, they are divyam, as good as Krishna himself. So, I humbly submit this to you.
Yeah. So the question is, scriptures are eternal. The writers of the scriptures have seen the past, present, and future. So they know Kali Yuga. So why have they not described everything for our situation? Is that what you're asking?
Correct.
The thing
because
is,
this narrative is always brought, like why we cannot follow Brahmacharya, because most of us live in an urbanized society. So,
right.
yeah.
So the thing is, till industrial revolution came, most societies were agrarian. And this was the maximum part of human history. It's just since 400 or 500 years that we have shifted to an industrialized society. And the society is now industrialized to such an extent that even our food sometimes comes from an industry instead of coming directly from a farm. So this is just the past 400-500 years. In a span of human history that is millions of years, Shastra has to speak not only to these 400-500 years, it has to speak to those who are millions of years in the past. If Shastra would write terms such as computers, mobile phones, something like that, people who lived in those millions of years would have absolutely no clue what Shastra is speaking about. Or what is a city, what's a superstore. Food, if Shastra says food should not be taken from a superstore, those people who were born before superstores came into the existence would have absolutely no idea as to what a superstore means. So Shastra addresses those aspects of human life which are eternal and which continue in all the ages. So that even if you can adjust those principles for your particular day and age, and no person in the past will become confused. So that is how Shastra is written. I hope that sheds some light on your query.
Yeah, I mean, Prabhu, but we also read, there are some aspect of devotional life which are described in Vedas, which are
Right.
not relevant to us, but they are eternal
Right.
guidelines. Ayurveda deals with like so many things which are not related to us or our practices. Um, and my basic question is like, since they are eternal and futuristic, I understand the spiritual part is enhanced in the scriptures and not the material like time, place, and circumstances. So I mean, uh, the industrialization, is it covered? I mean, it's a very humble question. I mean, somewhere in some kind of, because this cycle is self-repetitive. It's being repetitive for ages, or it is this time like people decided to revolutionize in terms of industrialization, because this span will continue and it will end, and then again it will start.
Yeah. So technologies of advancement have been described in many ages in the past. For example, my Danav, my is a demon who has access to many esoteric technologies, some of which even we don't have access to today. So my Danav, he constructed a very beautiful palace for Yudhishthir. It's such that it was full of optical illusions. And this was possible in Dwapar Yuga, but only for limited people. So Vyasdev described it as it happened in the Dwapar Yuga. And then the scriptures also describe airplanes. Scriptures also describe, various wars that took place between demons and the gods, and the various divine weapons that were used. So all these things are described in the Shastra. So many of the technologies were present in previous ages. It's just that in today's age, a lot of the technologies have become available to common people, because people in Kali Yuga really have very short lifespans. And in that very short lifespan, also the lifespan is supposed to be, it's not of very high quality. So in order to keep them engaged in lower pleasures, all these things are there. So, but whatever technologies were there in the past, Sri Vyasadeva has made a passive mention without going into much details about it. So I hope that is clear.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because past technologies are way advanced than current technologies. I mean, celestial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in some ways, definitely. But today's technologies are available far and wide. That is the difference. Whereas past technologies were available only with selected few people. That is the difference.
yeah. So my next question is direct from your presentation, and this is where, I mean, you mentioned like sex is not rejected by the soul; it has a purpose, even in a spiritual world. This
Right.
part I never heard before. So, can you, I mean, if it is in context, you can elaborate, or I can ask separately, like whatever you choose. I
I'll
don't.
why I don't need to elaborate in my words. You can read Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's own words. Srila Prabhupada
No,
himself
I
he said
read that.
huh, in the purport to for the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhu, please read what is given on the screen. Can you see?
You want me to read or Srinath Prabhu?
You can read.
Yeah, you
I
can
can't.
read.
Okay. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically deals with the original and pure sex psychology, adi rasa, devoid of all mundane inebriety. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point for all activities. Wherever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominant. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth, and thus the absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It is not possible to be impersonal and contain pure sex life.
That's it. So this is true. I hope this conveys the point sufficiently that where Prabhupada says that the reality of sex life is experienced in the spiritual world and material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. So there's nothing, the acharyas, including Srila Prabhupada themselves, have spoken so clearly about it. So
Correct.
I'm just highlighting specific things which are helpful for the jiva to overcome kama vega. This is Adiras, basically. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is very expert in dealing with Adiras.
Mhm.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Omkar Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam. Prabhuji, I had two questions. One is the Bhagavad Gita verse, which is frequently quoted, that when we experience higher taste, that the lower taste will go away. So I want to ask something about this higher taste. There are varied implications or explanations of this word higher taste. Can you explain it? Because if this higher taste is compared with experiencing bhava or a prema with Krishna, that cannot be had for a sadhaka, at least immediately. So
Right.
what exactly this higher taste is? Because sometimes this is also misused. For example, a devotee who is having some problems or issues, he will be advised that you do some things which can just engage his activity. Like for example, like that, so that his swabhav will be satisfied. So this higher taste, can you please explain it in a detail?
Okay, so our acharyas have very clearly said that somebody who is basically experiencing bhava or prema or even ruchi for that stage is experiencing higher taste. I am highlighting a verse from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, which you can see. It says ruchim udvahatas tatra janasya bhajane hare vishayeshu garishtopi ragah prayo viliyate. It says ruchim udvahatas. Rupa Goswami says one who has reached the platform of ruchi in bhajane hare, in the bhajan of Lord Krishna. Vishayeshu garishtopi raga, his attachment, deepest attachment to the sense objects, prayah viliyate, will almost be dissolved. So Rupa Goswami himself is certifying here in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that if you have ruchi, at least reach the stage of ruchi, your sense enjoyment will almost be defeated. Now, other people may give other interpretations of what is param drishtva, but I have to be faithful to what Rupa Goswami says. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur very clearly specifies in the commentary. He says, prayo viliyate. Even at the stage of ruchi, it is almost dissolved, not completely dissolved. So he says, Bhaktau Praveshanantaram, even after entering Bhakti, Vishaya Kinchid Raga Satvepi na dosha. After entering Bhakti, if one is a sadhaka, obviously he will have some attachment, but that attachment is not such a big fault. Because Bhakte Paripakat Tadapi Samasyena Yasyati. Because as he becomes mature, gradually all his faults will go away. So it's just a matter of time. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also honestly admits that a new devotee will have some issues with sense gratification. So that interpretation of Param Drishtva is as Rupa Goswami has done in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Param Drishtva means Param Rasam Drishtva Nivartate. So not that, by Param can also mean Prashadam. Some people say Param means Prashadam. By eating Prashadam, your lower taste will go away. But experience doesn't show that. I have to speak something which is based on proper experience, which works. Otherwise, I will end up saying something and people will say he gave me a false solution. So that will be cheating. No? So as a Brahmana, we are not supposed to cheat other people, especially when we are, teaching them something. So therefore, I am telling you what is the thing that will work actually. What will work is Param Drishtva Nivartate, when you will see Param Rasam Drishtva Nivartate. Otherwise, you will be stuck in vairagya. When you're stuck in vairagya, then that is an infinite loop. And, you will be hesitant to relish Madhurya Ras. You'll run away from Madhurya Ras. Then what will you do, Omkar Prabhu? So this is the solution.
There'll be no hope left.
Yeah, it is the solution. And therefore, Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakur was so, it is spurious brahmachari actually. To say simply cultivation of renunciation with no mention of service to Radha Krishna or service to Bhagwan is spurious brahmacharya actually. What will you do? Let's say tomorrow, Omkar Prabhu, you wake up in the morning and suddenly all your desires are gone. Then you become a desireless person. What will you do after becoming desireless?
Nothing. There'll be nothing left to do for me.
So that's what an impersonalist is, right?
Yes.
There's nothing left to do.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhuji, so this can imply what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, because any jiva, he has different samskaras from past life. So
Right.
Some devotees may have some issues or problems with, let's say,
Hare Krishna. Can you hear him, Prabhu?
Chakravarti Thakur say to them when there's a difficulty in following regulative principles.
You broke off, Prabhuji. You'll have to. Dameshwar, did you get to hear his query?
It broke off at the same time that you were unable to hear him.
Right.
I'll repeat, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, what I wanted to ask is, every jiva has different samskaras from past life. So a jiva may be fortunate to get bhakti, but he may not have been so fortunate that he may have some problems with, let's say, some regulative principles. But this statement of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does not explain what he can do. Like, for example, when a sadhaka has some issues with some regulative principles, then what will he do at that very point? Immediate solution, or I would say.
So that you'll have to wait for 1 week. Can you wait for 1 week?
Yes, Prabhuji.
We'll give a solution every.
Okay.
Bhakti means 360-degree protection. Bhakti will not abandon you even in the most difficult times. But you'll have to wait for a week for that. Right.
Okay, Prabhu.
The solutions
Yes,
are coming. The solutions are coming. Please hold on.
Yes, Prabhu. And Prabhuji, I had a... Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I had a second question, Prabhuji. This was regarding this Maran and hearing the pastimes of Radha Krishna. This is often portrayed as a medicine for getting rid of the sex desire.
Hey, why should it be portrayed? It is. Why should it be portrayed? It is.
Yes. Yes, it is. So, Prabhuji, the point is, the statement, although it seems so small, but it's not so small. A person or a sadhaka who wants to practice it, he has to go through many steps, and basically he needs much of a personal guidance in this.
Right.
And many a times in the talks, we can speak upon the principles that are given in Shastra. But the personal application of this is a very difficult part. And if we only speak the principal part to any sadhaka, now it will be very difficult to examine whether what he can do or what not. So, like, we are just speaking principles, but what principles are applicable to him or how to apply it?
Right. So every sadhaka in the 8th verse of Upadeshamritam, the sequence of progression, practical progression will be described when we discuss the 8th verse. So every sadhaka is supposed to follow a roadmap. And that roadmap has already been given in Shastra. In Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, did Rupa Goswami not say, Guru Padashrayas Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi Shikshan? First take shelter of a Guru and take Shiksha. Take genuine learning from a Guru who knows what is there in the Shastra. Did Rupa Goswami not say this, Omkar Prabhu?
Yes.
So then what prevents us from taking good Shiksha? What prevents us is our, we are very lazy to seek Shiksha, or either we have made up some shortcuts in spiritual life. That I will hold on to the dhoti of my Guru and my Guru will open the back door for me. Right?
Yes, a popular statement.
Yeah. So if people are attached to shortcuts, then that is what they are going to get. Later in life, when they don't experience any taste, and then they come to us and they say, we are not experiencing any taste in bhakti, then you can ask them, what happened to the dhoti of your Guru? What happened to your Guru's dhoti? You were catching your Guru's dhoti, right? So, the thing is, Prabhu, somebody who studies in detail and somebody who understands the process in detail gets a different result, and somebody who's just floating on the surface gets a different result. It is very obvious. Advancement in Krishna consciousness is dependent upon the attitude of the follower. So the attitude is, if the follower has a proper attitude, he will go and search for all the details. And somebody wants a shortcut to go back home, back to Godhead, because back to Godhead is a fun place to live. It's an eternal picnic where I can enjoy. So then they have not understood the point of going back to Godhead. It's not it's not Disneyland, right? Back to Godhead. So where you get an eternal pass for Disneyland and you can stay in Disneyland forever. Just to mention, Disneyland actually ended up making some in the United States. The Disneyland, they made some housing complexes within Disneyland so that people could stay there forever. They could buy property there, and their children would grow up in Disneyland. But guess what? Many of the children were miserable, because that's what in the material world, that's what Disneyland is. So spiritual world is not Disneyland. You can have joy rides for the rest of your existence. That's not what spiritual world is. There is a principle in the spiritual world. That is unconditional service and sacrifice. One has to learn that is flavor. That is joy. That is bhakti. That bhakti should be there. That is what brings the fun in the spiritual world. But anyways, therefore I am saying people should get out and seek a good bhajan guru from whom they can learn. Otherwise, if they want shortcuts are there. I will give you a shortcut. One who recites the 2 syllables, Hari, has studied the 4 Vedas. Right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's not an over exaggeration, Prabhu. The glories of the holy name are true. There is no over exaggeration in that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you should not search for more details. The verse never says that you should not search for more details. The verse is true. It is an offense to say that the glories of the holy name are over exaggerated. But it is true that one who has chanted the 2 syllables and he has studied the 4 Vedas. But doesn't mean that he should not separately study the 4 Vedas. He can also separately study the 4 Vedas. All right, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mohit Deshmukh.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Radha Pranam. Thank you for a beautiful presentation. So my question is, in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, it is mentioned that Manera Smarana Prana, Madhura Madhura Dhama. So you mentioned that like that verse. So it is said that we should smaran the pastimes of divine couple. So my question is, which pastimes of divine couples we should hear, and what qualification it requires, and at what stage we can hear it?
Very nice.
And yes.
So
And
yeah. Please tell me.
I have heard that we can hear the pastimes if we have that. It is verse now. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam Yadi Kuto Lapilapate Tatra Lolyam Api Mulyam. So if we have lolyam, we can. But what is the parameter that we have lolyam or not? How can we say that we have lolyam?
All right. So which pastimes can we listen? Because that was, see, that is for that verse which was quoted, Maneras Smarana Prana. So
Yes,
see,
Prabhu.
every day we should have some smaran, little bit of smaran. Doesn't mean that that smaran should directly be of Madhurya Lila. First and foremost, a sadhaka should do nice shravan. He should perform nice shravan. Hear from the Gurujanas. He should hear all the Leelas of Bhagwan in sequence. So therefore, I said that one has to cover all the cantos in sequence so that he can hear all the Leelas. When such pastimes come from the mouth of the Guru, then one can faithfully hear the pastimes of Bhagwan, because it is coming from the mouth of a Guru, and the Guru will clear any doubts. But when after hearing repeatedly, one gets a spontaneous desire that, yes, I am relishing these pastimes, then out of a spontaneous desire, it will be specified in the 8th verse only, one arrives on what is known as Smaran Dasha. Smaran Dasha means one becomes focused upon specific pastimes of Bhagwan. And that is what Narottam Das Thakur was speaking about. It's not that every new person should do that. No. A new person should do Smaran, but he should perform Smaran of general pastimes of the Lord. For example, remembrance of Lord Kapila Dev's pastime, remembrance of the pastimes in various cantos. And when he gradually arrives on 10th canto, then he should also remember those pastimes. But not that directly on day one, no, that is never recommended. Because since day one, he has to first cultivate general understanding of Bhagwan. Then after having a general understanding of Bhagwan, understanding Tattva of Bhagwan, then he can definitely go ahead, and with the permission of the Guru, he can hear more pastimes specifically related to specific pastimes of Bhagwan. So that has to happen at a certain stage of maturity when the Guru allows it and when the Guru gives the permission and blessings. So that has to. So that solution I had given, but practical implementation of the solution will have to be done with the help of a Guru or with the help of a spiritual master. So I hope that will be clear.
Yes, Prabhuji. And one more question about the grihasta dharma. You mentioned that even if a man thinks of a woman, another woman except her wife, that in mind, also in the mind, then also like it is against the brahmachari ashram in the grihasta ashram. Brahmachari in grihasta ashram. So is there anything like that now we should accept grihasta ashram? Like now we are ready to accept grihasta ashram, because it is not possible for like we can't our senses are not that controlled. So when we can know that we are now able to accept grihasta ashram,
Actually, then
we are ready to enter in.
Shastra says, Anashramina Tishteta Dinam Ekam Api Dvija. One should not remain without an ashram even for a single day. That is what the Shastra says. So if one knows that one is not eligible for Brahmachari ashram, one should take to Grihastha ashram. One should situate oneself in an ashram. Because remaining without ashram is a potential danger. Of course, in today's world, there are so many situations in which people are not able to immediately decide on an ashram. And therefore, people are not able to make a decision whether they want to be a brahmachari or a grihastha. So we need to look at those situations with a compassionate eye and give some practical solutions to them. So that will be covered in the next part, because those who are anashramis means they're not neither in brahmachari ashram nor in the grihastha ashram. So, and for them, what can be done, because their situation is very difficult, and they also have to sometimes work, and then they also have to earn money for themselves. and they have to expose themselves to this world, and so neither the benefits of the Brahmacharya ashram nor the benefits of the grihasta ashram are available to them. So what can they do? So we'll have to cover that in the next presentation. So you'll have to wait for a week.
And Prabhuji, like I'm not living in a Gurukul and I'm a student. So in which ashram I am? In which ashram I am?
That's a very
Or I
personal,
am like
that's a very personal question. You are a devotee, you are well situated, right? That's all I'll say. You are a devotee, you are well situated. I'll not judge you according to your ashram. You are a devotee, you are well situated. Okay. In
Okay.
privately I'll tell you, but in public
Okay.
I'll say you're a devotee, you're well situated.
Yes, Prabhu.
Should we continue?
Yeah, how many more devotees are there who have raised their
3.
hand? 3. So we can. So those devotees who have to leave for some reason, they can leave, or then we can continue it. So, is it okay with you, Dhameshwar too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
Let's continue.
Bhavya Bhagavan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for bringing that verse up which says the Guru's seva should be prioritized over anything. I mean, for the Vaishnava service. That was very relevant, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have 2 doubts. One is from the last class. So in the last class, at the very end of the last class, you mentioned that the devotees should not try to impress other devotees. And that was the point you made. So I just wanted to know how we, in a gross sense and in subtle ways, also try to impress others. So if you could just tell how through subtle actions or ways we try to impress others, and in gross ways also, so that we can know about that and be cognizant of that and stay away from that.
Can you
That is
remind
first.
me? Can you remind me what context? Impress others about what?
Prosy, it was at the last, matlab, it was the question answer part. And in the very end, you mentioned that there are like just 7 million devotees and devotees should not try.
Yes. Now I remember. A devotee should not. My point was that a devotee should not try to have, not try to run after fame or something like that. Because anyways, the number of devotees in the world is how many? It's a very insignificant part of the world's population. How many devotees are there in the world? Let's say from the world's population, it will be 0.000000001% maybe. That may be the devotee population. You want to become famous in that, sample size. In mathematics, there is a term sample size. But you want to become famous in that sample size, it's not worth trying, because the sample size is very low. So that's that. So I said, even from a quantitative point of view, from a mathematical point of view, the sample size is so small that it really is not worth trying, basically. So that was what I wanted to say in that, because as a devotee, one should convince one's own self, and one should try to preach to others. But main thing is basically how one lives one's spiritual life when one is alone. Basically, when one is alone, when the cameras are switched off, how is Hari Parshad Das after the camera switches off? So that is what Hari Parshad Das is, basically. That this what you see in front of the camera is a different person. So this person has the same name, Hari Parshad Das. He's a very different person. Huh? When the camera switches off, it's a very different person. So what is that person when the camera switches off? That is what the person really is. So that was what I was trying to say as far as I remember. So I hope this clarifies.
Yeah, but Prosy, like I can talk about myself that as neophytes, when we get some chance to be with some exalted Vaishnavas or get a chance to serve them. So probably sometimes we end up telling others, oh, we got to serve so and so Maharaj or something like that. So
Right.
it in a subtle way, it's like trying to impress others about through your spiritual credits, right? So I mean,
Right.
can you tell in a deeper way how we can avoid these things and what is the best
There
way
is
out of
no,
it, Prabhu.
yeah, there's no deeper way. One thing is one should not advertise one's spiritual activities. One should never advertise one's spiritual activity. I met this person. When I say advertise, it means that one should not use it for, social gain. That is what I mean to say. Why? Because Krishna has said that in Srimad Bhagavatam to Uddhav. Let me point out that verse. Kritasya Parikirtana. Very nice, yes. So that is 11th canto, chapter 11. These are verses 34 to 40, I think. It goes all the way till 40, yeah. So 11, 34 to 40. One of the things is Kritasya Aparikirtanam. You're able to see what's there on the screen? Yes, all right.
Yeah, yes, I can
Okay.
see, Prabhu.
So, all right. So then let's go to the word for word and let's try to see what is the meaning of Kritasya Aparikirtanam. Here is the word for word in front of you, Prabhu. You can read what is given.
Kritasya, one's devotional activities. Aparikirtanam, not advertising.
Oh, very nice. So it's right there in the Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not advertise one's spiritual activities. So Kritasya Aparikirtana. So this is Krishna describing to Uddhav what are the characteristics of a good devotee. One is Kritasya Aparikirtana. You give some charity, keep quiet. You help a devotee, keep quiet. You meet a devotee, keep quiet. Try as much as possible to keep quiet and not speak to others. Why? Because meeting other devotees should not become an opportunity for social gain. You're not climbing the social ladder here. I told you the sample size is very low. So we're not climbing the social ladder here. And in the commentary to this verse, the Acharyas quote one Smriti, I remember. Dharma Ksharati Kirtanat. Very nice sutra they gave. Dharma Ksharati. Dharma is washed away. Kirtanat, by glorification of it. So dharma gets washed away when you start glorifying your achievements. So dharma Ksharati Kirtanat. So I remember this principle. Therefore, see, even when I meet some senior devotee, I also feel tempted. Sometimes I have fallen victim to the temptation. Yeah, I met this Maharaj, I met that Maharaj. I agree. But I try my best not to fall into that trap again. Because sometimes, sometimes when somebody clicks a photo and the photo comes out really nice. Yeah, I was with. So the photo was nice. So the photo is, I'm looking good in the photo. So that's why, that's, but I try not to make it a point of advertising my devotional activities. One should not advertise in general. This is the principle. So this is what Shastra says. I am also trying to follow it, although sometimes I struggle in following it. So I hope this is clear.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, my second question was, like you mentioned, one should have a bhajan guru. So bhajan guru and Shiksha guru are the same, and if the bhajan guru says chant 64 rounds and the Diksha guru says you just chant 16 rounds and use the rest of your time in preaching, so there could be difference of instructions also, and conflict can also arise because of that. So how do we take a bhajan guru?
See, a bhajan guru is a person who is selected after, one has an intense desire for advancement in bhajan. Such a person is bhajana vigyam. Rupa Gosvami is going to reveal in the Upadeshamritam, bhajana vigyam. He is very learned in the art of bhajan. He knows what to do, what not to do. And sometimes the Diksha Guru himself becomes the bhajan guru. So you don't need to separately seek out a bhajan guru, because sometimes the Diksha Guru himself performs the function. So when the Diksha Guru himself performs the function, you don't have a conflict. Sometimes the Diksha Guru gives a separate instruction and the Bhajan Guru gives a separate instruction. Now the conflict arises. So at that point of time, one should go to the Bhajan Guru and one should tell the Bhajan Guru that my Diksha Guru has told me this. Usually the Bhajan Guru will understand that, see, this is a difficult situation for him. So the Bhajan Guru will make some adjustment for you. And then you should bring back that adjustment to the Diksha Guru and tell him that I love this person as an authority. So he also suggested I could do this. What do you think of this? And then when the Diksha Guru is also in favor, then one can strike a balance. So this is what can be ideally done. But usually such situations should not arise wherein the bhajan guru and the diksha guru are in a conflicting situation. It's difficult for the sadhaka, basically. And therefore, it is best if one's diksha guru himself is so advanced in bhajan that one doesn't need to seek a bhajan guru separately. So that is what.
Yeah, that was another question. Sometimes, like if I talk about myself, so Guru Maharaj can be bhajan guru as well for me, right?
Yes.
I mean, he does not have so many disciples. He has limited disciples.
Wonderful. So he can very well act as your bhajan guru also.
Thank you so much, Hari Pastor. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can keep the last two questions short, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, like one question.
Okay.
Make it a good one. Dipayan Mukherjee.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
You're also visible.
So first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude. I've been hearing many of your lectures in the YouTube channel and I've derived a lot of nourishment. Today, due to some reasons, I couldn't attend the class. But I since it's one question, I'd like to ask a question from last week.
Okay.
Actually, I'd like to check with you what idea I have, whether it's correct or not. So please correct me. I was under the impression that generally at the time of initiation, when we take those 4 vows,
right.
So it's like I was under the impression that either it's complete renunciation, or according to last week what you had mentioned, the standard one, I think the Vimala standard.
Right.
And apart from that, everything else is like sinful. So then sometimes I've heard that sometimes if Guru Maharaj is there and the disciples' sins lead to a health problem for the spiritual master.
Right.
So how much is that true, first of all? And secondly, if somebody is feeling like that I may not be able to do that highest thing, and if I'm at a lower level, then I don't want my sins to go to Guru Maharaj. So let me wait for some time for initiation. So let me not take initiation immediately. What would you say to somebody like this?
All right. So first thing is, does the Guru take on the reactions of the disciple? So let's clarify that. This is specified very clearly in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, first chapter, verse number 77. Then it should be in front of you, the verse. Raggi chamatyaja doshaha patni papam svabhartari tatha shishyarjitam papam guru prapnoti nishchitam. Raggi, a king, amatyaja doshaha, takes on the faults of his ministers. Patni papam svabhartari, a husband takes the faults of his wife. Tatha shishyarjitam papam, similarly the sins of a disciple. Guruhu prapnoti nishchitam, a guru certainly attains. So this is right there in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, first chapter, verse number 77, that a guru definitely attains the sins of the disciple. The thing is, Brahmacharya is not a sin. I click this. As long as you are in Brahmacharya, is that sinful, Deepa Prabhu? Yes or no?
No.
No. How can Brahmacharya become sin?
No.
No. So as long as you are situated in Brahmacharya, it's not a sin. When you have broken Brahmacharya, that's a sin. And now, should Brahmacharya be defined the same way for Brahmacharya and grihasta ashram, or are there different ways of defining Brahmacharya for them?
According to last week, it's differently defined.
Not according to last week. It was not invented last week, Prabhu. It is in Shastra.
I mean, I did not know. Yeah.
Yeah. I did invent something last week, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So it was right there in Shastra. I just pointed where it is. Right. So according to Shastra, I'm asking you, because you can verify all the sources. According to Shastra, is it the same for a Brahmacharya grihasta, or is it different?
It's different.
Different. There lies your answer. So as long as you are a Brahmachari within your grihasta ashram, you are not putting any sins on your guru. I hope that clarifies. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a really valuable answer. I think that would relieve a lot of guilt and shame for many devotees. Next we have Satvik Sharma.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Good.
Prabhuji, I have one little question. When you were answering to Mohit Prabhu's question regarding Smarana of different Leelas of Sri Bhagavan, so you said when one listens from his Guru,
Right.
and he listens to different Leelas of Sri Bhagavan, there comes a time when he gets to know that now he is relishing. So
Right.
can you please explain a little bit more on that point, that how he comes to know that he's relishing? Means earlier you said in the language that what's the litmus test,
Hmm.
that titration point.
So you're asking what is the sequence of progression and when does one come to know when one is attracted? That's what you're asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as I said, it will be covered in the 8th verse, but I'll just give you a hint of what is going to be there in the 8th verse. I'll cover it in detail later. This is the 8th verse in front of us of Upadeshamritam. Verse and translation we're going to see in detail later. But here is Srila Prabhupada saying in the purport, in the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravan Dasha. Often people read it incorrectly, Shravan Das. No, it is Shravan Dasha. Shravan Dasha, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the name of Krishna and his form, qualities and pastimes. See, a neophyte should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. I specify this is from Prabhupada's words. Sometimes I specify from Prabhupada's words, yet some devotees do not like it because it's not their conception of bhakti. So I can't help it because I have to specify what is there in the Shastra. I can't cater to somebody's tastes or all the time. So what is there in the Shastra, we all have to accept. The Shastra says that a neophyte should engage in hearing Krishna Katha, then that is what a neophyte should do. And this is called Shravan Dasha. Prabhupada says stage of hearing. By constantly hearing of the name of Krishna, for this is for the neophyte, and hearing of his form, qualities, and pastimes. So a neophyte should also hear about form, qualities, and pastimes. But that one should not, immediately jump to a specific pastime. Therefore, I said go in a sequence. So one accepts the stage of one enters the stage of Varana Dasha. Now later, when we come to 8th verse, I'll explain what is Varana Dasha. Then when one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. This is the indicator that one automatically one's mind is rushing towards hearing Krishna Katha. And then Prabhupada says when one is able to chant in ecstasy after hearing this Krishna Katha, he attains the stage of Smarana Avastha. Avastha means Dasha. Basically, Smarana Dasha, the stage of remembering. So we are going to follow a sequence, but that sequence is going to come up in the 8th verse. So I just briefly given a small intro to what that is. It's coming up. It's very exciting. The practical roadmap of how to progress. No, not just vague statements. Do this and the taste will come. Do that for 20 years and the taste will come. No, sir. We'll give you a roadmap, and that roadmap will specify exactly what has to be done. And when that roadmap is there in front of us, absolute clarity, backed up 100% by Shastra, nothing left to doubt. That is when we will have complete destruction of doubt and progress in our spiritual life. Okay.
I have a sub question, Prabhu.
Okay, but that breaks Dhameshwar Prabhu's request. So you have to take permission from Dhameshwar Prabhu.
Prabhu, can you kindly accept one more question?
Dhameshwar Prabhu.
Haribol, quickly,
Haribol,
please.
Dhameshwar Prabhu.
Quickly, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being so kind. Prabhuji, you just highlighted Srila Prabhupada's statement that the neophyte should engage in hearing Krishna Katha.
Right.
So one should, like in today's environment, we are hearing Krishna Katha over our phones and this. So does this produce a similar kind of effect? And if it does not, to what extent it produces the effect?
Produces a similar kind of effect in the sense that you're only able to hear from the speaker. And you're not able to see the activities of the speaker. You're not able to associate with the speaker. You're not able to ask personal questions to the speaker alone.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference. Because a sadhu is not simply his words, a sadhu is also his actions.
Yeah.
And now you don't know. Do you know what I'm wearing below my kurta?
No.
Why? so, so
You will have to kindly stand up.
so I'll not stand up. Why should I stand up? So therefore, you can't even see the sadhu completely in online lectures. You don't know what they're wearing, what thoughts they're having. Those things you know when you associate with the sadhu for a certain amount of time. That difference is there. So personal association, not just general question and answers. Personal associations is very important. For advancement in our Krishna bhajan, in our Krishna Bhakti. That personal association is very much needed. Just for clarification, I'm wearing a dhoti, so just so that you don't have a doubt. I'm wearing a full
No,
devotional.
I'm not having any doubts.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Dameshwar Prabhu. Thank you,
Thank
Dameshwar
you,
Prabhu, for being so
Satvik
kind.
Sharma, for your questions. I'll invite
you,
all the
Haripasha
devotees to unmute and say thank you and offer your gratitude to Hari Pārṣada Prabhu.
Thanks a lot, Prabhuji, for
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhu. His grace
Hare
Hari
Krishna.
Pārṣada
Hare
Prabhu
Krishna.
ki Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.